Go for it.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday, March 31st edition of Breaking Bad Careers with Coach Eli and Coach Peter. Shortly, we're going to be joined by Danny Rubin, our special guest. But for now, we're going to go ahead and kick off. I'm super stoked to be here with Eli, as we are every other week. Eli and I actually spent the last week and a half together here in Honolulu, doing some offsite work together. There's Danny. How you doing, Danny?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to have you with us. We're just kicking things off. We're about to do some quick introductions.
Sure.
And we were just reflecting on how much fun Eli and I had together in our offsite here in Honolulu. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Reminisce away.
We'll need to include more people next time and have a group offsite.
Yeah, you're invited next time, Danny.
Invite me. Jeez, yeah. Really.
Yeah, super fun. Anyway,
I like Hawaii too.
Not a bad place. I'm not complaining, that's for sure. But anyway, so yeah, everyone, thanks for joining us. Breaking Bad Careers. My name is Peter Hill, international career coach and co-founder of the Career Strategy Series. Here with Coach Eli. Eli, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, no doubt. So Eli Beaumont, also co-founder of Your Career Strategy, international career coach, 5-time career changer. And we are super pumped to have a brilliant speaker, expert communication strategist and writer, author, founder of Rubin Education, Danny Rubin. I could go into all your accolades, but I would love for you to kind of give a self-introduction. Let the people know, who are you and why are you here?
Sure. Well, you started off calling me brilliant, so I have nowhere to go but down from there. So let's start with that. But I'm happy to be here. Appreciate the invite, Eli. I've respected what you've done for a long time admirer. As they say in radio, first-time caller, long-time listener. And Peter, I've just met you recently, but I'm sure the two of you make a great combination. And so thanks for having me. And as Eli said, I'm Danny Rubin. I am based in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And my background, my career, even prior to the work that I'm doing now, which is sort of educational based and curriculum driven, I was a journalist. A TV reporter for a CBS news outlet here in Virginia. So I was on the news every day, interviewing people, throwing stories together, 5 o'clock news, 11 o'clock news, burning buildings, snowstorms, sometimes good things too. And I use that experience as a great training ground for honing my communication skills. Skills like talking to complete strangers, making them go on camera, telling good stories, being brief, sticking to deadlines. All these skills informed what I learned was what made an effective communicator. And I've carried those skills with me into other roles. Briefly, I was a consultant to network news outlets. I worked with NBC News, specifically with Meet the Press for about 3 years, doing some research and strategy for the show when David Gregory was the host of the show. And I have transitioned into a different role, which I still do. I still have a foot in this game, which is public relations. So I've taken the communication skills from journalism and help clients communicate to their audiences or gain traction either in our local community or across Virginia. And sort of my latest chapter, which I've been working on for several years, as Eli will attest, because this has been a long time coming. But I started sort of a passion project back in 2012, which was a personal blog for career advice, which morphed into a focus on writing skills and templates and giving people examples for emails and LinkedIn and phone calls and all these things. That morphed into a book, which it became 3 books, a book series on templates for business communication and different conversations. And that morphed into a curriculum around the books, which is where you find me today, which is me running a company that provides curriculum to K-12 and higher ed, teaching students how to be an effective communicator, how to write emails well, how to use the phone, how to talk to people face to face or in Zooms. And that has become a real deal business with customers in 30 plus states and thousands of students using this material. Even as we speak, there are students in the curriculum learning these skills. And that really speaks to what I've been driving at for a long time, which is helping people to learn even if I'm not there. And it's taken a long time to build that platform, but now it's up and running, and I'm very proud of it. And I think there's a lot of growth this year and in the coming years for that. So that's sort of the long abbreviated history, for what it's worth, of my life and what I'm doing right now.
Man, that is so cool. What an awesome career. Peter and I have the privilege of working with thousands of career changers who've gotten the chance to really get a lot of variety in their careers to date. And it seems like you've had a large mix of variety from an industry point of view, but your focus area has always come back to this area of communication, right? And I guess, you could have gone down a variety of different paths based on the direction you've gone down. So why have you made it your life's work to focus on written and oral communication, particularly within education, versus other domains that you could have gone down?
It's true. I could have stopped along the way in many places. I could still be a TV reporter. I could have gone down that path. A lot, typical route. You work in smaller markets, you move up to bigger markets, maybe try to get to the network. I could have done that, and it didn't feel right. It didn't speak to me like I thought it would. I could have continued being a consultant to news outlets. I could have continued being a PR professional. As there's a lot of different, easily could have just continued on a path, taken a salary, done that. But none of that spoke to me, down in my soul. And I know that what I love is I love communication skills. I'm weird in that I like writing and business writing, but I also like teaching. And so I had to essentially create my own job, my own path. I had to make it because it wasn't going to be there for me. No one's handing out that kind of a job. No one's offering a job with a particular company that I have created. It just didn't exist. And so if I wanted to do what I wanted to do, then I had to do it. And I'm still doing it. It's been incredibly hard. I'll spare you all the sordid details of making a company out of nothing with no funding, right? And bootstrapping it and reinvesting the profits back into it and maintaining a full-time job so that I'm not, cutting off my knees, right? And so I just knew that I always have to stay true to myself. None of the jobs that I've taken or roles that I even still have in some respects, sort of maintaining salary and just sort of making this startup grow, none of those careers are bad careers. They're all worthy careers. Nobody would ever look at that and say, well, what's he doing? That's what a mistake. It's just that we all have to look inside ourselves, and we have to be honest with ourselves, and we have to keep blinders. I don't care what other people are doing. I don't care what that person's doing in journalism. I don't care how famous they are or not. I don't care. Unless it's speaking to me in here, I'm going to move on. And so I've sort of been in my own pursuit for a long time. And I feel like I've sort of arrived at what it is I'm supposed to do. And I think that it's still unfolding, and which is exciting to me. But I know that I'm doing the work that I think I was put here to do. And it was not easy to find or to maintain, but I think we all should be on a path like that. You two are, and the folks that you work with, you're guiding them down the same road, to listen to yourself first, because, otherwise you're trying to be like someone else or fill a role you see out there. And that's not being true to who you are.
Speaking our language, longtime admirer of you, Mr. Rubin. And, ever since 2012, and I came across that blog, I think that's how we first connected. And we've been speaking ever since. And everything you share right there really resonates. I can see Peter smiling almost ear to ear. You're on mute, Peter.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I was on mute. There's like literally a helicopter outside my window right now. Hopefully you can't hear it.
I think it's Hawaii 5-0.
Yeah.
It's not Hawaii Five-0. They're doing an airlift off the top of the condo across the street.
Oh, never mind.
Anyway,
That.
you're bringing a tear to my eyes, because this really is the type of work that is right in our wheelhouse, and it is critically important, to your point, and it behooves everyone to be intentional about figuring out what that path is, and there's, it's no longer a career ladder, right? That's a passé term. It's more like a career jungle gym. That's something that we sometimes toss around, right?
Totally.
But listen, okay, so you're a communications expert. Really cool background. It's very clear how this led you into this work. It sounds like you do a lot of written communication stuff, but also some oral communication stuff. So can you speak to the maybe relative weight of each of those, and maybe the tension of the dynamics between the two of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I have an interesting perspective now, because I wouldn't call the students I work with customers, because I'm mostly dealing with the administration and teachers, right? But ultimately, this content's getting down to students. And we're helping students as young as 11, 12 years old. Okay. So, you're often operating with people kind of switching careers. I'm dealing with teens, okay, at many times. And the lack of understanding about the things that we just do every day, send an email, pick up the phone, call somebody, hop in a Zoom. These skills are a mystery to young people, as despite how savvy they are with communication, with like technology, with coding, with websites, with whatever, these skills are a total black hole. So what we stress is equal measure email communication, speaking skills, because you have to use both all the time. And so I would not put one over the other. You have to understand how to send an email, and you have to understand how to call someone on the phone. The tendency today, not just for young people in high school and college, but even out into young professional life, the tendency is, oh, I'll just text that person. Or the tendency is, I can write anything to anybody that looks like a text, because that's how we all talk today. And that is a huge mistake, because I'm sitting on the intersection of education and industry. And industry is surveyed time and time again about what they want to see from recent grads, from young professionals. And unequivocally, they say at the top of that list are soft skills. We need to see better soft skills. Now, that's a very broad term. In my world, I focus on the practicality of soft skills, which is, how do you send a message that looks good? How do you shake somebody's hand, hold a conversation that's going to leave an impression, right? Soft skills can take a lot of forms, but that is the number one vulnerability in the marketplace that everybody's trying to hire for, and they're not seeing enough of, because texting has become a problem in the professional ranks. So from my view, we are equal measure writing and speaking, and we have content that we deliver to schools that push students in both places. Two quick examples, and it sounds so obvious to the three of us. Many students today, young people in general, I'm not even just talking about students who are 13 years old. You have 23-year-olds, 27-year-olds. They do not know what a subject line is for. They will leave it blank. They will put the entire message in the subject line, hit send. Okay, this is where we're at. We have students who are completely afraid of using the phone outside of texting. You ask them to call a business, can't do it. It goes to voicemail, they freeze. Yeah. Okay, and these trends are going to follow us into the workplace. Unless we intervene and teach them while they're still in school, whatever grade they're in, we're going to see this more and more creep into the workplace. And we're not at a point, and I hope we're never at a point, where industry says, oh, it's okay, you don't need to know that. It's okay to work here and not know how to use the phone. I would hesitate and struggle to find a business owner that would never need an employee to speak to somebody. That's probably not going to happen. So we need to make sure, whatever age we are, that we are practicing how we write and how we speak, because they both matter every single day. and skills like subject lines and voicemails. I mean, to people outside of education, they're like, what? They don't know how to do that? No, they don't. By the millions.
Yeah.
By the millions. That's the world I'm in.
So how the two-part question. I think I know the answer to the first one, which is how the hell did this happen? Okay, and I think the answer is probably has something to do with social media. And then if
sort of,
okay, then start with that. How did this happen?
So social media, yes, and mores slide and appropriateness slides, but really what's going on in schools. And I know I want to keep this more general to your population too. I don't want to just talk about schools all day.
I'm totally into how this is, because we all got here because we went to school and we also didn't get this education, right? So I think we can all relate to the dissonance that may be what is in the professional world versus what we're getting in our traditional educational system. So let's have some fun with it.
Sure. I mean, just briefly. So what happened is a couple things. One, it was the push towards standardized testing. So schools got really, really focused on teaching to the test, and nothing mattered but the test. So anything outside of that, any practical skill got pushed to the wayside. Also, there was a false assumption for the last 20 years, like I said, that students, because they're so nimble with technology, they didn't need special help learning these digital communication skills, but learning how to code and learning how to use subject lines are not the same thing. So for many, many years, schools sort of said, oh, well, the kids will just learn that eventually, like we did. We'll just learn it. They'll just learn it. Even though there was probably in every high school 20 years ago, there was a typing class, right, that everyone took. That doesn't exist now like it used to. So it creates this whole generation of young people that are wholly unequipped to communicate in a way that's going to get them noticed for job searches, for internship searches. It's just this whole skill set is just not in their brain at all. And this is where we are. So we're going to see more people come into the workplace without these skills. And it's going to make those who have those skills even more highly prized because they're harder to come by. So it's social media, yes, and that is part of it. But I think it runs deeper than that. It's institutional. It was decisions made at the highest levels to teach a generation of young people what to do, what not to do, or what they're going to show them, what they're not going to show them. And then the last thing about it is the pandemic exacerbated where we are, because you have millions of students learning from home on islands for a year, having to email their teacher. And I would say, a big part of my business prior to the pandemic was going to conferences, exhibit halls. And I'd stand there with my booth and my stuff, and they'd come by and say, oh, email writing, that's a neat thing to teach. What an interesting little niche you have. And now, a year after the pandemic, you're into it, they see what we've got, and they're like, please help me. What does this cost? How does this work? Like, I can't take another day of emails where they say, hey, you, I'm not going to have my homework done in time. Or, hey, miss, right? And this is the stuff that is becoming part of culture. So I think that we're fighting a really good fight right now to prepare people, young people, to go into the world and make sure that next message they send gets opened. Because if it doesn't get opened, that door to opportunity stays locked. And so we're fighting a different battle, trying to prepare people for what comes next.
Yeah, you're really freaking me out, because I was taught that stuff. I'm a different generation from Eli, I think maybe from you as well, Danny, but I was taught that stuff for sure, right? I remember learning very practical skills about how to format a letter, right? Left justified. This is where the inside address goes. I was taught that stuff. I assumed that they were still teaching basics like this, but it sounds like I'm wrong.
Not in a concerted way. Not in a way that, so what's exciting about it, okay, what I'm able to try and do now to fight hard for this, okay, this is not handed to me. I'm working hard at this, but what I'm able to do now is take the curriculum that I've built and bring it to a school system and pilot, start from the bottom, work up. And one example, just yesterday, we're going to work with a school division in Virginia, near Northern Virginia, and they are going to use our material with all 1,900 of their students in their high school and middle school. It's a division with one high school and one middle school. And they're going to use our material with all 1,900 students next year. After we piloted with a group of like 50 students this year, they're like, wait a second, we should teach all of our students this. So now, and not only that, what I love about what they're doing is they're going to have, the teachers aren't even going to teach it. They're going to have their student government leaders lead the lessons in every classroom once a month for all students. And they're going to learn email skills and phone skills and whatever we choose for them to teach. So we're going to teach every student in that school system the things that I'm telling you right now they don't have. So I am trying, our company is trying to bring these skills back into the classroom because everyone knows that it's needed now and they sort of let it slip for way too long. So we're coming in with that solution as an entrepreneur, right? Trying to solve a problem, a very obvious problem to everybody. So this is the role that I'm playing now, taking all the skills from all the years, all the news stories and all the press releases and everything I've done to bring it to a spot where then we can teach every single student going through that building and out that door. So when they get to the workplace, they get to Indeed, they get to wherever they're going, they're going to know how to do the things I'm telling you they can't today. And it could change their life because they know how to formulate an email as one example. So that gets me really, really excited because it's like, it's helping people at the right time. When they say that's entrepreneurship, right? It's the right product to the right audience at the right time. And this is assuredly, the right time for this. So it gets me real jacked up, as you can tell. That's what it's all about, right? I mean, we want to feel like what we're doing matters and that we're sort of living our truth. And so, I just, that's what gets me moving.
That's awesome. Are you getting some recognition back from educators, from the students, et cetera, that like kind of support the claims that you're like, yeah, this is important work? Or is that the feedback that you're receiving, or are teachers and students like recognizing that this is actually providing immediate impact to?
Absolutely. I mean, that's really gratifying. Again, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So you sell the product into the school, then you got to stay on them. Are they using it? You do check-ins, feedback, how's it going? And then they often will share some anecdotes about how it's helping students. Here's one that I really love. It just really cuts to like, America's a big place, okay? And it really cuts deep, and so much of it is rural, right? It's a huge, huge country. So many people. So here's an example, working with a very small school division in Colorado. The school itself, like 6th through 12th, has like 200 some students. Okay, very small, like a mountain town. And one of the students just became like the pageant queen for the town. Okay, so like this is like slice of Americana, right? Yeah. And I love that. And she's used some public speaking lessons from our curriculum to help her go around town and be the pageant queen for the year as a junior in high school. Okay, I love that. Because that's what this is about. It's just getting down to every little nook and cranny in America and helping people with whatever they've got going on and making them better, more confident, more capable. And I loved the teachers sharing that anecdote with me. And we have students who have, landed internships and jobs, and teachers who see a night and day difference between, they come in writing bad emails, now they're writing good emails. They're writing respectful emails to the instructor. That is, I think it's changing lives. I think it changes lives. It's an email. We send 1 million emails a day, but for these students, I think it could change their life. It could change the trajectory of their career. A student said he landed, we work with some engineering schools at college level. A student landed an internship at Dell, and he credited his email etiquette. I mean, who knows what happens with him next? And what I love about it is I'm not going to know these people. Most likely, I won't know them, right? And there's probably things that have happened that I don't know about. But that's what we talk about, putting good stuff out there, and it leads to more good. And if I don't never know about every single anecdote, okay. But I know that things are happening. Good things are happening for people because I was just committed to my own truth. And by seeking my own truth, it allows me to make the biggest impact I can make on somebody else. And so, I know that it's happening. And that's enough to feel like the work is worth it, as hard as it is.
Are you finding the biggest challenge to be with the email space, or are you using that only as an example for a broader?
No, I mean, that's probably the biggest choke point. And again, I don't think it's limited to just teenagers. I think it spills into young adulthood, 20s, 30s, even people who are older who just have poor etiquette. They don't know how to write very well, or they're too short in their messages, they're too curt, their tone is off. These are lifelong challenges sometimes. So I do think that email etiquette is one of the biggest sort of elephants in the room. It's not discussed enough. It's not taught enough. And again, I'm coming to you. I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I am focusing on where I can have the biggest impact and where I can stay away from the competition. Okay, there are a million tools out there for other sort of career readiness topics and like assessments. And I'm trying to stay in my lane, trying to carve out my company space that if you want to help students, young adults with their digital communication, with their email writing, the only place you got to go is this Rubin company. That's what they do, right? And when we talk about, startups and finding your place and sort of being people being able to identify you with one thing, right? And not the kitchen sink, but like really like this sliver. But as I just showed you, as I explained about that school in Northern Virginia, I'm doing one thing, but they're providing it to everybody. So it's not like I'm just talking to 6 kids in one classroom who do like a English lit class. So I'm reaching everybody by staying really narrow. And I've learned that lesson over the years with the startup is like, continue to like narrow it down, right? Don't try to, let me get that. No, just stay right here. Right. And meet the audience with what they need, but just stay in my lane.
Well,
right?
I think
don't get off it.
I think you're spot on with the email thing. And I'll share a quick anecdote. When Eli and I were working together in London in higher education, we were working with undergraduate students, right? And some of them were actually pretty good at email. Others would come to us and say, hey, can we just text back and forth? Or, hey, can we WhatsApp or whatever platform they were comfortable with? And we struggled a bit to help them understand that, oh yeah, okay, yes, we could do SMS with you, but what we're trying to do is actually set you up for success when you get out there in the real world and work for a company or become an entrepreneur. Because the reality is that in the real world, in a company, email is the communication platform. Now, there are certainly companies who are also integrating, Slack and Skype and things like that. But overwhelmingly, email is still it. And if they don't have the skills to be able to write simple emails and influence and communicate and share their opinions and so on and so forth, it's really going to be detrimental to their professional reputation.
There's no question. Look, email is a start of every conversation we have in business. That, seeking an internship, seeking mentorship, sending off the job app, replying, it's where it all starts. And so what's just amazing to me is how overlooked it has been for all of these years. And it's just this thing that, and I think part of it is writing is hard. Writing sort of terse, focused, concise language is hard. And a lot of people who even teach communication or business, they don't focus on that. It's not sexy. It's not fun. You'd rather focus on a lot of other topics that seem more interesting. It's not a great TED talk. Okay. I mean, it's not the most scintillating thing. And so that's why we'll just all learn it on our own. Right. But there is a strategy. There's even an art to great emailing. Wow. Because you have to convince somebody to read what you wrote. And we all hate reading today. That's another huge problem in schools now, especially with the pandemic. The literacy skills have gone straight down, and that'll be ramified across society for many, many years. And we don't even know yet how bad it's going to be with this year lost. And so you have to convince somebody to read what you wrote, act on it, respond to it. And there's not nearly enough stress placed on how critical that is. It could be, your future, your life, this huge thing you want. And you address the person as, hey, you, and they never write you back. And, what happens is a lot of people will then say they keep striking out in the job market, internships. Oh, I'm just unlucky. Nobody wants to talk to me. It's not luck. It's how you approach people. It's how you make them feel before they ever respond to you. So we can say, oh, it was this, it was that, but really it's how you made that person feel and how you addressed them, how you respected them, how you captivated them. And it really comes down to that email. And we do judge books by their cover, and that's just the honest truth. I did an interview last week. Eli knows we do these, or my company does these webinars where we interview people from different occupations. And I interviewed a guy who is a producer in Hollywood. He makes movies. And we had hundreds and hundreds of students there, okay, crashing in. They all want to work in movies, work in TV. He said, if you send him an email that looks like a text message, he'll never answer it. He will never even look at it. If you don't use a subject line, he'll never answer you. And guess what? He's about 32 years old. He's not 68, been in the business for, since like old Hollywood. Okay. He's young. And he's like, don't come at me with that. And for the students there, it was like, oh, okay. Like they needed someone to tell it to them straight. Like, yeah. I can't do this. And it's not like they were trying to offend. It's just culture, right? It's just what they do. Yeah. But it was a wake up call like, oh my goodness, if I want to work in these places, I have to think about this stuff. And so it was important that his voice came through to them.
Yeah, that's excellent to be hearing. It's always a third party that's going to really make an impact. You could say things all day. It's almost like listening to our parents. Like we don't really care what they have to say. It's through one ear and out the other until we hear it from someone else that we have never met or someone that's totally unbiased. I remember when I was about like a year in, and I thought I was a pretty good writer, right? Going into my first job, graduating from Penn State. And I was like, I know how to write an email. I got this job. And I would write these pretty long emails to my clients when giving them excuses. Oh, I'm going on holiday and I'm actually going to go to, let's say, Hawaii with my girlfriend and we're doing X, Y, and Z and this, that, and the other thing. And my manager at the time was like, hey, what? I know you're trying to be thorough, but there is such a thing as being too thorough and no one really cares, right? And he was pretty harsh with me, right? And my ego at the time had a tough time receiving that. But it was probably some of the most important feedback that I've ever gotten because it really helped me become more strategic, more concise, but still generous with how I write in emails, specifically when I'm communicating with clients in a professional setting. So, a lot of the people who are probably watching this or who will watch this are consider themselves to be strong writers, right? And
yes,
my question to you is, what are some ways where individuals who consider themselves to be strong writers, like what are some quick wins they can have to like really challenge this idea that they're already good writers and enhance that skill set? What are some things that they could be doing?
That's a great question. Thank you. I would say there's a stark difference between being a good writer and a good communicator. Okay, they're not the same thing. Because you can have great grammar, you can be schooled in the art of fine writing, but what matters, and that looking good matters a lot. But what you're saying in the words, how the words feel, that's the part we often miss. And let me give you an example. I tell this to students. I've told it to corporate audiences. I'll tell it forever and ever. When we send an email and we want someone's response, someone to help us, it's a request for a job, a request for networking, an internship opportunity, whatever it is. And we all send these messages throughout our lives. There's one part of it that we almost always leave out. And I don't care how good of a writer you are, how pretty the email looks, how flawless the grammar, this component we always leave out. and it does speak to our culture today. We have a me culture, and we leave this part out. And that part is we almost never do research on the other person. We don't show the other person we care about their world. We just expect them to care about ours. It is a fatal mistake. So this is what I mean. And we teach this to students, and I teach it to really any age. Let's say you want someone to help connect you to a job, or you're emailing somebody about a job. You know their name. So I asked the students, where would you go to find information about that person? They'd say LinkedIn, or they'd say that maybe their website or social media. Any of those will do. What I want the student to do, or the person to do, is go to that person's profile, webpage, something, read something the person has done recently, a career highlight, a project they worked on, even something their company did, something tangible, something real, like they just launched a new initiative called Project X, or they just partnered with this name of this company on this project, something with proper nouns, okay? And they're going to take that information and bring it into their message and say, I read about you on LinkedIn. I saw you just did this, or you just won that, or you just completed blank. That's all you have to do. It takes 5 minutes. It's not about time. It's about changing how we think about the world. Because if we want people to care about us, we have to first care about them. And it's always left out of these pitches. So what's going to get the person excited? If you're saying, hey, can you hire me? Versus saying, I learned about you first. It's not brown nosing. It's called relationship building. And it does speak to our culture, which is so focused on getting likes and shares and comments on what we are doing. And we don't think we should be thinking about other people. So when we say, a lot of people say they're good writers, that may be true. But are you a good communicator? Do you know how to make somebody feel so they're going to want to write you back? That's a different skill set. It involves writing, but it cuts deeper. And it is a skill for all ages. It is a lifelong skill. And I try to live by that credo all the time by, when I'm talking to a new school, I'll try to look them up for a minute and understand, what they've got going on, or that teacher, just so I can talk about them for a few minutes before I get to what I'm getting to, because it just creates a much nicer conversation anyway. It breaks the ice. But I think it's just a really important skill to carry with us that even the best writers may not think about every day.
And there's like zero excuse for not doing that, because we have the information at our fingertips now, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're a job seeker and if you don't take 3 minutes to go on LinkedIn and look at somebody's profile, you're missing that massive opportunity that you're talking about.
That's right. Exactly. So that's something that I take very seriously, and I share it all the time because it's so simple. But again, it's about guiding people. It's like, really being very concrete. Like I ask students, like if you go to a website and you want to learn about the company and like what they're up to right now, where would you look? And they always say the same thing. They say the About Us page. And I say, no, because that page is written once in like 1997 and they don't touch it again. If you want to know something new, here's the secret sauce for everybody listening. If you want to use the strategy and make it your own. And again, it comes back to my time in journalism and PR, right? Everything comes back. Everything's still back there somewhere. You go to their press releases. That's the secret sauce, because that's where the company's putting all of their latest and greatest achievements is in their press releases or their media page. So you just read a press release. And also when you go to the interview, it's the most gotcha question of all time. They say, have you had a chance to look at our website yet? And usually people say no, or they lie because they're caught. You could have been ready for that, saying, yeah, actually, I was on your website. I was reading your press releases, and I saw that you just collaborated with so-and-so on this project. Tell me more about that. And they're like, wow, you're almost halfway to hired because you have a brain that shows you're aware of other people, not just yourself. So the best the best writers out there, the best speakers, there are plenty of great public speakers out there, and they're really good at talking all in one direction. It doesn't mean they're good listeners. So even though you think you're the top of your game or you don't have a whole lot of work to improve on, I do. I still work on these skills. And anybody out there who thinks they're at a certain level, there's always another level. And what I'm sharing with you today is I think some of that next level stuff that's not that complicated. It's just changing how we think about the world.
So I'm wondering if like the act of reading is important for enhancing our ability to write and speak, right? So, I mean, as part of what you teach in your methodologies, do you speak to the importance of like reading books and long form articles to enhance our ability to communicate across the board?
Yes, I would say, and actually that's something that we're adding more content to the demand signal, which is like that literacy skills are really struggling. So we're adding more. And my first instinct is always to look to the news. The news teaches us everything in terms of grammar and style and tone, and also understanding, a fact versus opinion, understanding how to go in and locate facts, synthesize information, short form, long form. To me, it's a never-ending classroom. So we're encouraging students to learn to read the news, not for any sort of political bias. I'm not even getting near that. Trust me. We got red state counties, blue state count. We got them all in this curriculum, and that's beautiful. I love that. I'm not touching on like pick a side or have an argument. I'm saying look at the news to understand sentence structure, to understand how to find facts, to identify what an opinion is, to identify how they use numbers to add detail and sense of importance to information. Like that's what I want you to look at the news for. And also to learn how to read. We actually added a lesson in the program recently where students need to read the entire job application because the submission requirements are specific. And they're then quizzed on how did they ask you to submit. I will tell you, I just put out a post. I just made a hire recently to my company, and I put a post out on LinkedIn briefly with the job description. And in the description, it said, please send your cover letter and resume to this email address. And out of like 30, 40 people that responded to it, only 2 of them actually did that. The rest just applied right through LinkedIn, quick button, submit their resume through LinkedIn. None of them followed the instructions. It was right there.
Oh, that's horrifying.
So we need to train young minds to read. And I will admit, I still have a habit of skimming. I should read. I have to focus myself. It's just, society today. Things move fast, but we have to learn because I'm not talking to any of those people. If they can't follow that instruction, I will never hire you. I will never hire you because you're out. You're done. It's over. I don't even want to talk to you because how could I have you be part of this team? If you can't follow the instructions on how to submit an application. So I agree with you, Peter, that reading and learning to be a good reader and a careful reader does then spill over into being a good communicator because it just helps us to focus our attention long enough to complete the task that we're on. And that's harder and harder to do today.
Yeah. Danny, you're doing a lot of important work. Everything that you've been able to share with us and our audience today, I think it has been extremely valuable, specifically in opening our eyes to what's currently happening in our education system. And hopefully we have some parents listening in here, right? I think you can talk about this stuff that's happening in schools, but really it needs to be enforced at home, because you can teach things to students, but if parents are just like, hey, well, you're doing that at school, you'll be fine, and not reinforcing that knowledge and reinforcing the importance of that knowledge, then I think we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle there as well. So have you found ways to engage parents through your curriculum, or like do you incorporate any of that aspect of learning into some of the work that you guys do?
That's a good question. There's plenty of homework in here. We don't actually, I like that thought a lot about how to engage parents in these lessons, because the sad truth of the matter is parents aren't all that great at this either. Okay. And especially today, you could have, parents of middle school, high school students, they're in their 30s and 40s. So it's not like they are seasoned communicators. Most people don't focus on these skills. They just do them because they have to do them to get through their day. So one thing, it's probably valuable for parents to see what students are doing, but we can't assume that they're going to be able to model behavior from home. They're going to have to learn it through the school, and they have to learn it through curriculum that's high quality and that is deliberately given to them so that they have to do it for a grade, for graduation. That's when the lesson's going to stick. So I do think that parents can help and maybe learn some too, but I wouldn't count on them for being that reinforcement. It's a rare child who has parents who understand these skills enough to be able to teach it at home. But I do want to say, I know that my world today is with sort of younger people, but I hope that some of the lessons that I'm talking about, anybody watching this would find applicable, because it's not just like only a middle school student should know how to do this. We should all know how to do the things that I'm talking about, or at least take steps to get better at them every day. That's all we can ask of ourselves, just get a little bit better and be intentional with what we're trying to do. So I hope that whoever's listening would take something meaningful from this conversation and be able to apply it to whatever they're about to do next.
So great segue into our last question for today. What would be your number one top tip, right? The reality is that our audience is probably not K through 12 right now today, right? So that would be great if we did have some of them.
No, I understand.
What would be your top tip? Let's say, we cater to generally people who are kind of managers of their own careers. They may be in career transition. They want to enhance their career management skills. So could you give us maybe one top headline tip?
Yep. And it goes back to what I was talking about before, which is to give other people the time and attention, make them feel like they matter. And that's how you gain someone's respect. So let me give you another example. And again, I think it wraps a bow on this, because we were talking about writing skills and speaking skills, right? We talked about the writing skills and doing the research. Let's talk about a speaking skill tip. If you think you're a great speaker, you're a great networker, a great schmoozer, you're shaking the hands, you're good at it, or you're an introvert. Okay. Either way, this is a good skill to take with you. So the next time you're talking to somebody, whether it's for a job, it's networking, you're in an elevator, you're in one day, again, a conference or a happy hour, whatever it is. Okay. And let me give you a scenario. The person's going to say something like, oh man, I just had the most exciting week in my career. Something like that. They just sort of offer that up. And let's say you had a really great week too. The inclination today in our me first culture is to say, oh, I had a great week too. Let me tell you what I just did. Meanwhile, that person is on the cusp of telling you everything they just did in that week that made them so happy. And you just ripped it away because you are focused on you, when your focus should have been squarely on them. And this is a skill for all ages, because I see all ages do this wrong all the time. Your answer should be, oh, well, what happened to you this week? And then they will proceed to tell you whatever it is they want to tell you. And if they say, oh, I just wrapped up this really big project, I was really proud of it. And then you say, what would you say next, Peter or Eli? If they say, I just finished this really great project, what would you say next to them?
I also finished this really great project.
Tell me more. What was the project about? Right? And they're like, oh, great. And then they blah, 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 right? And they'll
tell
talk
me
all
more.
day. And then they might never even ask about you. And you know what? That's okay. Because I promise you that by the end of that conversation, however long it goes, they're going to think of you and say, I met the nicest person today. And all you did was let them talk. It is so rare to find somebody in this world who knows how to let other people talk. They're just happy to let you talk, to feel good about what you want to talk about. And all they're interested in is your story. That is so hard to find today. It's like a mythical creature, because we are so focused on what we need to say. And the world has to hear our story. And that's what matters. And if we could lead in this world, go out there in this world with a listener's mindset, I promise you'll open 10 times as many doors And you'll be seen, especially in a managerial position, they'll respect you 10 times more because you're letting other people talk, even though they know you're in charge, and you always are. They're talking. They feel validated. They feel needed. They feel heard. And if I could offer that last, that's the biggest thing I could tell you, is we want to be what the world didn't expect. And if you can do that in your day-to-day, you will never be forgotten.
That's so powerful.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's powerful. It's beautiful.
There's your soundbite. There's your little preview snippet right there. See, I'm a TV guy. I listen for sound bites, right?
I love it. I love it.
There you go.
Love it. I love it. But my inclination was to suddenly say, Danny, tell us even more. But well,
I've said enough. Sometimes you got to know when to shut up too. That's a big part of life.
But this stuff is also, it's not only one-on-one, right? It's also even in an interview setting. If you're a job seeker, it's like, to understand the company's problems. Tell me more about what's going on in the organization.
But not even that. I tell people this, and I told a friend this the other day. He was applying for a job at Salesforce, big company. And I was like, before you go in there, look the guy up on LinkedIn. Turns out he's like really big into hiking and the outdoors. So is my friend. And I said, when you sit down with him, tell him, hey, I saw you're really big into hiking. So, I am into that too, because my friend lived in Colorado for a while, lived in like Vail and like all this stuff. I'm like, tell him that. He's like, I should do that? I'm like, yes. And he's like, but shouldn't I say that like at the end when they say, do you have questions for me? I'm like, no, say it at the beginning because it'll break the ice. It'll go from an interview to a conversation. And it shows you looked him up with stuff he put out there readily. It's not like you're snooping around on him. Like he wanted people to know.
Yeah.
So it's like, do that. You might get the job because of that, because you let him talk. It's like, it's in my mind, it's a very, rational approach, but I know it's sort of not common and it's not something we think about every day. We don't think we're supposed to do that. And if you're an introvert, it's even better. Let the other person talk all day and they're going to like you. You don't have to sit there and feel like you're on stage, right? So it actually plays to your strengths even more. And for extroverts, shut up and let someone else talk. So it's foolproof. It is foolproof. Foolproof.
Oh, Danny, it's perfect. I didn't think I was going to come out of a communication strategy session and come out with actually the most important part of communication is listening and being curious and making sure others feel heard, right? And that's a really great takeaway from this conversation. So to wrap things up, why don't you let our audience and our listeners know where they can engage with you? Where can they find your books? Where can they engage with your curriculum if that's something that they're able to do? Yeah.
Sure. Well, our website is Rubin Education.com. My last name is Rubin Education.com. And everything's there. The books that I've written are there, links to Amazon, and the curriculum is there, and student success stories and background on me and everything you'd ever care to know, if you care to know all that much. It's all there. And you can also contact us through the website, ask a question. Happy to chat. We have a live chat there too. And just appreciate anybody wanting to learn more about it and how this business came to be. And it's been an interesting journey, and I'm happy that even in the toughest moments, I just stuck it out. Because then I think about this high school in Northern Virginia with 1,900 students that are going to be taught by their own students how to write emails. None of that happens if I write a blog and just let it go.
Yeah.
None of that happens if I just say, that was fun. It's like it gets better and better. And I don't even know what's next. And that's what's cool about it too.
Yeah, you're doing super, super, super important work. So congratulations for carving this niche for yourself, but it's clearly so needed. So thank you.
Well, no, thank you. And thank you both for the work that you're doing. I think helping people when they're pretty lost and they show up at your door and you can, get them on a better path. I mean, you're changing lives too in your own way. So thank you for all of your efforts and thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's incredible. Here's to making ripples in the world in whatever shape or form that they take.
That's right.
And with that, we'll bid everyone adieu here on this episode of Breaking Bad Careers. Danny, take care. Enjoy the rest of the week. Peter,
Thanks,
you and
Norman.
I will be in touch, and until 2 weeks from now.
100%.
Thanks
Thanks everyone.
again. All right.